I can lift my leg up a little bit.
We've been putting videos on YouTube. You probably saw that in the email that we sent out this week. So you're always free to go there and review what we talked about. Thank you, Tony. Okay, I thought it might be useful for me to give you a little background as to why I'm addressing this topic this morning. It actually came out of an experience I had. As some of you know, I'm a retired journalist, and I was editing a book for a friend of mine. And what I had done is I printed out the hard copy, made all my edits on that hard copy, and then went back to my computer and looked at the hard copy while I was making the edits on the computer. So what I found myself doing is constantly looking down at the hard copy, looking at the computer, looking at the hard copy, looking at the computer. And then every time I looked at the computer, what was happening is I couldn't find the cursor on the screen. And literally, it was taking me longer to find the cursor than it was to make the edits. And I thought, there's got to be a better way than this. There has to be a better way, a faster way to find that darn cursor every time I look at the screen. So I started poking around in Windows settings, and I found this assistive information. And I thought, well, that'll be something good for the club. You should all have a hard copy of all my directions, right? And I've asked Scott and Tony to walk around the room as necessary to assist. You all know my teaching style by now. I prefer to be interrupted. I prefer to have questions answered. My philosophy being, if I just stand up here and talk, then all we're doing is teaching you what I think you ought to know, when what I really want is for me to teach you what you want to know. So let's take a look at Windows Assistive Technology. Here are the problems that we're facing. I think that one thing that we can all agree on in this room is that we're not as young as we once were. So, for example, we might find that the text and the graphics are too small on the screen, and we're having a hard time seeing them as much as, or as well as we'd like to. The mouse cursor is hard to spot. As I just mentioned, that was my problem that led me to do this discussion. And it might be hard to double-click the mouse. How many have your mouse set up so you only have to do a single click? Okay, about a third of you. Okay, for the other 2/3, I think you'll find this of use then when we get that far. So here's my solution. Windows accessibility settings to make the text and graphics easier to see, cursor easier to find, and easier to double click. And I also wanted to give you an example of the before and after. And I think this is pretty much self-explanatory. Notice that this little white cursor is not as easy to see, as easy to spot as that big black one. Okay, do we all agree on that? Same thing with the hand, the pointer, whenever you are going to click on something. And then here, the problem that I originally faced, that skinny little, I should be this skinny, the skinny little cursor there compared to the wider one there. Obviously that one is much easier to spot. So we'll show you how to set it up so you can spot that cursor. And then just a reminder that the help sessions are here Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 10, right in this room. I'm here Monday, Wednesday, Friday, except I won't be here this Monday. I'll be here Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday this week. Scott's usually here. Tony's almost always here. Roger's here. So you're always free to come in if you have questions on this or on anything else. Well, as I mentioned in my email this week, you might find it useful to get online and or open a word processing document as we work through these instructions. I want to take it nice and easy. I want to give you lots of chance to ask questions, nice and slow. So please, again, feel free to interrupt me at any time with a suggestion or with a question. So, first thing we need to do is look at our ease of access settings. So what I'll ask you to do, if you have your laptop, is click down in this field right there. And then type ease of access. Now before somebody says it, yes, I know there are other ways to get to the Windows settings. Right, there's probably about 5 different ways to get there. I chose to use this method. I thought it was consistent. I thought it was fairly easy. So we're going to click here and type, and as soon as I start to type ease, actually, you should see, maybe I need ease of access center. Okay, so that's the one
Joe,
we want.
where is it that you're typing?
This is in the lower left corner of the screen, in the search field. You can't, well, you can see it now.
It's on your sheet of paper.
Right, right down there, Antoinette.
Joe, that's assuming we don't have the shell.
Right, yeah. Does anybody not have that? Tony, Where's Tony? Tony and Scott, will you start walking around with folks, please? If they don't have it, show them how to, another way to get to the control panel. And that was my bad, I kind of assumed that everybody had that search field there.
Joe,
Scott's correct.
I've got a desktop, but I put the control panel on the bottom taskbar, and I just click on it and I'm there.
Okay, yeah, Herb has an excellent idea. To get to the control panel, you can put it on your taskbar, and if you're not sure how to do that, we can show you. But one way or the other, we need to get to the ease of access center. Even when we go to the control panel, then we have to find that ease of access center. So as I said, there are a number of ways to do it. Is everybody there? Everybody caught up with us? Okay. So once I've got ease of access center highlighted, all I can simply do is press enter. And
Always scan this section.
I have the sound turned on, so let's ignore that. I'm not going to take the time to find it and turn it up. Okay, so we come to this screen, and I'm not seeing what I wanted to see, of course. What I'm looking for is display.
Start magnifier.
Yeah.
Start narrator.
Okay, let me turn my sound off because I don't need that.
Start on screen
Oh,
keyboard.
shut up.
Hit the shut up button.
Yeah, there's the shut up button.
It's on the side of your phone.
All right, now I did walk through this, I swear that I did, and I have display, so I'm gonna have to go up here. As I mentioned, if you're in the control panel, and Herb told us a good way to get there, you're not sure where a particular item is, you can always go to the upper right corner and type a search term there. So that's the fastest way for me, so I'm going to type display.
Are you waiting to magnify that for us to show us how that's done, or?
Yes, I am. I'm still not where I want to be. Okay, I need the help. In town, where is it displayed? Well, this is embarrassing. Scott, you have any ideas for me?
I'm trying to see, it's a little blurry.
Device visual display.
I thought it was.
Thank you.
I kept
Thank
doing
you.
this.
Let's see if I can-
I got my
Yeah.
glasses out.
We may need to adjust, Roger, can you adjust the
I gotta make
Scott just-
resolution?
Scott just
I've
did.
got
As
this.
much as just what he just tried to do.
Oh, okay.
Just type in settings, Joe, in the bottom. Or use the little gear on the left.
Okay, here's where I wanted to be. All right, is everybody there? Everybody on that screen? Everybody, anybody not on that screen that has a laptop? Okay.
Scott?
Hi, Lord.
Okay, click on the bottom left. Oh, no, you're on the shell. This is the entrance.
So as I said, there's many ways to get there, and that was another way, thanks to John for the reminder that I can get there by simply typing in display.
On the shell, just hit your Windows button, and on the top of it, you'll switch to the regular Windows 10.
Okay, so most of us are there, so I'm going to keep moving on here. Once we're on display, you can scroll down a little bit, and right here where my cursor is, or you might see better with the pointer, change the size of text, apps, and other items. If you click on that drop-down box, I only have 125%, but you might have 150, 175. What do some of you have? You only have 125? Donna, what do you have?
I have 100.
Okay, can you put in that little drop-down list and,
I'm moving it up and it gets bigger.
right, that's what we want to happen, just to make everything bigger on the screen.
140 I like.
Okay, 140, okay, so that works. Right. Okay, so for example, I can click on 125, and you can see then
Oh, now we
the
can read it.
difference. Right, now you can read it.
No, this is not.
Okay. 100%, That's too small for our purposes, so I can go up to 125 and make it easier for everybody to see.
Thank you.
So what this does is it changes that display. When I say permanently, I don't mean forever and ever, until you go back and change it again. Later on, we'll look at a way to temporarily make a change in the display, but this one does it more or less permanently. Lauren?
When you increase, is it just the font and you get less on the page?
Right. Yeah, it's everything. For example, if I go online now, which, see, this is one of the problems. You might recall that down here on my taskbar, I had a icon for Chrome. Now I can't see it. Now what I have to do is go to the little up arrow right there and go to Chrome. So Lori's point is a good one, that it decreases the amount of real estate available, if you understand where I'm going with that, the amount that you see on screen at any one time. Everything's bigger for sure, but there's not as much. So that's the trade-off, that's the drawback to doing that. Okay, but my point still remains, if you're having a hard time seeing text, having a hard time seeing graphics, then you can go and change that display to a larger number.
And I see focus was there.
Joe,
Yep,
I address that a different way with my desktop. I just bought a bigger screen.
okay. Yeah, her is a good idea too, you can always buy a bigger screen.
Yeah, I clicked on it.
I really like the difference.
Good, good.
Over here, what you said.
Okay, everybody all right? Everybody cool on that one? We're all set? Let's move on to, if you want to make the cursor wider. This is the point I made earlier when I was having a hard time finding the cursor. What I did is I made it wider. So once again, we're going to go down to ease of access, and yes, I know there's other ways of getting there. Now this time it took me right where I wanted to. Who knows why I didn't last time. Okay, so down here, on the left side actually, it says cursor and pointer size. That's where we want to go next. Everybody there? And then right here for change cursor thickness. Play with that for a minute. You might want to make a note where this is right now. If you rest your cursor over it, it'll tell me I'm on number 4, for example. But I can go all the way up to 20, and you see how wide the cursor is. Now again, there's a drawback with that, in that you're not going to be sure if you're on A or B in this case, or it could be X or Y on your word processing document. Cheryl, you have a question or comment?
Well, she's still trying to get to the display thing.
Okay.
I don't know.
So does that sound pretty useful? Make that cursor a little wider, easier to see? That helped me a lot when I was fumbling and mumbling, stumbling around. I can make it real skinny too,
Joe,
where I can't even see it. Yes, sir. Or Lori, I'm sorry.
my wife was having a problem with the cursor as well, but she has a Google operating system for someone it does. And I was able to put a circle around it, like a ring. And that's how she finds it now, so that ring
Okay.
follows the cursor.
Okay.
Is that available on Windows?
I have not seen that ring around it, no, or circle around it.
So for anyone with a Google operating system.
Also on this same screen, notice these change pointer size options. I can go anywhere from there to here. Change pointer size and change pointer color. So that's also useful to know. I don't think I have that on my sheet, maybe it's later, but that's another option for you. All right, everybody caught up with the question?
Did you
Jerry?
pass over focus? It was a focus assist.
Focus assist.
Because sometimes there was a point in my life when I thought my screen was out of focus.
Okay. Focus assist?
Yeah,
I've never heard of that one.
well,
Focus
it
assist,
was
there
in
we
the
go.
last screen.
Focus assist there.
Okay.
So, what
Yeah.
does that?
It's a good time for me to say I didn't get into all the settings for
get?
time purposes, but I'm happy to address these too. Don't know. Don't know anything about these.
Okay.
That
Focus assist, okay. Apparently there are times where you can tell the computer not to bug you.
Focus
So
on
it's
me.
not
So
focusing
it's
like
not,
So,
don't focus
yeah.
on me.
Right, it's not focus as making text
Things
clear,
seeable.
but focus as
Okay.
don't bother
more
me.
legible.
Okay.
Would that be under display on that menu on the left?
I'm not sure. What I did is I simply searched for focus, and that's what brought it up.
That's what it was called.
Oh, there it is, yeah. They're about halfway down, focus
Oh, there you
assist.
go.
Okay. All right, so next section here, if we want only to make part of the screen bigger, once again, if you're not there already, go to ease of access. Hit enter. This time I'm going to scroll down quite a bit. Magnifier. I don't need to scroll down. On the left side of the screen is magnifier. Okay. For now, leave turn on magnifier turned off, but scroll down to change lens size. I'm sorry, scroll down to choose a view. I'm going to recommend that you not click on full screen because everything is going to be absolutely huge. You won't be able to work at all. But if you go to lens and then scroll back up and turn on magnifier, then this is what happens. So for example, that makes it really easy to see. Back to my previous point, you can see what a problem that could be if everything on the screen was that big. You'd have this much room to work
The
with.
whole wall.
Does
Right.
that stay on all the time now?
That'll stay on all the time until I go back and turn it off.
Click it off.
Right. Okay. Any questions? Everybody caught up to us there that has a laptop with them? And thank you all those who brought in laptops. Antoinette?
I'm trying to get somebody here to help me.
Okay, Tony, can you pop up and help Antoinette, please? Scott's doing double duty.
Would there be a way to put that on the
On what? On the taskbar? Probably not. I don't know of any way to do that. Yeah, I'm trying to right-click Herb, thinking maybe... There is a hint here, Herb. Press the Windows logo key plus the plus sign to turn on the magnifier. So that might work. Yes, that worked. And the minus key to turn it off. Okay, so that's useful to know.
That would be
All right.
good when you're shopping and want to look at details on a picture.
Yeah, Herb has a good idea too. You're shopping on something online, you recall seeing a picture, and well, what does it really look like? Turn on the magnifier, you can zoom in that way and get a better idea of what it looks like. All right, good idea, Herb, thanks. Okay, and then finally on this screen, just something that you might want to be aware of. You can turn on color filters. I didn't care for this much, so I'm not going to spend any time on it.
Reverse the colors.
Oh, now my computer's locked up.
They'll give you white print on black page.
Yeah, some can look really bizarre and not very helpful. So let's move on to that next section.
That's what that notices.
Okay, I noticed at the bottom, or noted at the bottom of that first page, other ways to make your content bigger. And these are matters I've talked about before, but just to remind you that you can always hold down the control key and scroll the mouse button away from you, and that'll make content bigger. Scroll towards you, hold down the control key, scroll the mouse button towards you to make it bigger. But we can move on from that. All right, any questions? Everybody caught up with us? Okay, cool. All right, next section, next page, mouse settings. If you have difficulty seeing the pointer, yeah, I think I'll pass. I was half tempted to ask how many have this issue, but we don't want to talk about our bad eyesight, so let's skip that one. Let's click in the search field, and we are going to type mouse settings. And as soon as I typed the word mouse settings came up. And it better take me to the right place this time. So I'm going to press enter because mouse settings is highlighted. Anybody here left-handed? Okay, Antoinette, have you changed your mouse buttons? You might want to try that if you're more comfortable left versus right.
You know, by the time I'm 75, I've learned to adapt to a right-handed.
All right. Just so for your information, you can change that if, for whatever reason, you want to change your primary button to your right button. The next one I have is click on additional mouse options. Right here. For some of you, it may be up here on your screen. Come on. There we go. Oh, I get help, it tells me. Yeah, I agree, I need help.
Who dat?
I know that I checked this out on this laptop, and I know that it worked. And now it's not working for me. Additional mouse options. There we go. That's the screen I'm looking for. All right. Everybody there?
Do you left or right click that? So
That's always a left click. Right click only gives us options. Left click executes those options. Okay, so I'm on additional mouse options. By default, you will be on the none scheme. Everybody there? Roger?
Do you have a trail on the mouse?
We do, and I'll show that in just a second. Okay, everybody's here? All right, so right here, where is that? Under pointers, the pointers tab. You're going to have none as your default. Right? Is everybody right there? Everybody has none for their default scheme? If you click on that down arrow right there, you see you have a choice of about 12 or so. The one I like is Windows Extra Large System Scheme. And it gives me that option. Actually, I think it's inverted is the one I like because it makes it black. I chose Windows Inverted Extra Large Scheme. And this is the one that I found so useful for me when I was struggling to find the cursor on the screen. So you see it makes everything big, it makes everything black, it makes everything easy to spot, which is what our idea is. And then you can click on Apply, and it'll make that quote-unquote permanent. Right? Not permanent, of course, until you come back and make that change again. How many would find that useful to have a bigger cursor like that? Okay, very cool, about half of you or so. Excellent. All right, so I like it a lot. It's very helpful to me. Notice also when you have that big black cursor, let me try to give you an example here. I'm not sure now. But there are times, yeah, right, like right there, if you're moving over black text, then that black cursor turns white. Again, to make it easy to spot. All right, everybody still with us? Okay, so let's go to pointer options. Anybody here think sometimes that darn mouse just runs across the screen too quickly? I heard somebody say yes. So we can change that. Right now I'm just about in the middle. I can go to fast, and now I'm barely moving my mouse, but it's skipping right across the screen. Or I can go to slow, and now I need to move my mouse as far as Terry practically, just to make it go across the screen once. So if you do have that problem is, well, I just barely touched the mouse and it jumps way across the screen, then you can change it to whatever is comfortable for you. And that's what all this is about, of course, is personalization. Andy?
Silly question. I don't use a mouse, I just use the pad. Is it the same thing with the pad?
I believe it would be. You can still change the cursor speed. Yeah, when I'm using, let me try that, Andy. That's a good question. I'll move to slow. Yes, now I'm not using the mouse, I'm using the touchpad. And now I have to keep using that touchpad, pushing until I get the mouse across the screen, because I have this set on slow right there. So if I move it up here, and go all the way to fast, and now I'm barely touching that. So, short answer to your question, Andy, is yes,
Thank you.
it does work.
Midway.
And Joe, I use the trackball and it works exactly the same.
Okay, Herb tells us that he uses a trackball and it works exactly the same as that touchpad or your mouse.
What's that enhanced pointer precision? What's that?
Yeah, I wasn't able to figure that one out. Enhanced pointer position, apparently, I mean, I clicked it off, and I just don't see where it makes any difference, but who knows? Maybe it makes it more accurate. You might want to check this box, automatically move pointer to the default button in a dialog box. You might not want to. For example, you want to make a change in a setting, it'll go to the OK button automatically. I don't really care for that setting too much, but it's there for you. Now this is the one that Roger mentioned earlier, display pointer trails. And this is what it looks like.
The Congo line.
Yeah.
Repeat that again?
Change pointer trails right here in that dialog box. You can click to put a check mark in display pointer trails. And then what it does is that every time you move the mouse, yeah, I like what you said, Herb, it looks like a Congo line. You can make those short. I have them long, you can make them shorter. I'll leave it long just so you can see it easier.
Kids probably love that.
Now, again, there may be a drawback to this, and Tony, perhaps this is something that you're aware of. What I think I saw, there's no scientific way of measuring it that I know, but what I think I saw is if I have pointer trails turned on, the computer seems to run a little bit more slowly. I think it's using more resources for the pointer trails and therefore slowing me down otherwise. I don't know, I can't swear that that was the case, but it seemed to be the case that pointer trails were slowing me down. I think for this morning, I'll go ahead and leave that on, just to make it easier for all of you to see where I'm at. It does make it easier, right? When you see those pointer trails? Okay, and then once again, when you have the settings that you want, you click on Apply or OK. Either one works there. Okay, everybody all set on that page?
Well, typed.
Okay, so let's move on to page 3. If you had difficulty double-clicking, and about a third of you had this setting turned on already, but for those who don't, I can show you how to do that. We're going to go to our search field once again, and we're going to go to mouse settings once again. And enter. And we're going to go to additional mouse options. And then on the buttons tab, the first tab. Now a couple of settings here I really like a lot, I do find very helpful. There's also left and right handed. As I told you earlier, Microsoft makes it possible about 6 different ways to do anything. But the double click speed, I can turn this all the way to it fast, meaning that I have to double click really quickly to make that little folder pop open. That's what I'm clicking on right there. And I double click really quickly again to make it close. Or I can move it to slow, and I can double click quite slowly. 1, 2, and it opens. See the difference there? A huge difference in the quickness of the double click in order to make it work. So I think that can be a setting that's really useful. We don't react as quickly as we used to when we were younger. So you can change that setting right there. Anybody find that helpful? Okay, cool. That's what we want. All right, and then once again, we'll click on Apply. And then finally, the hint I mentioned earlier, and I'll be done. 2 more hints. If the scrolling goes too quickly, we go to mouse settings once again.
Excuse me,
And we go
can
to-
you change that double click to a single click on that?
We can. I'll show you how. I'll show you where to go to do that just in a minute.
Okay.
Okay. Everybody still on the screen with us? Okay, so if you are scrolling your mouse using that center button up and down, and you find that it just scrolls too quickly for you, we can choose this line. I'm right here, multiple lines at a time. I don't think any of us want one screen at a time because that goes too quickly. As we'll see here in a moment, I'll show you. I turn that on.
Show your color.
That's not going to help me because there's only one page there. So now every time I roll my mouse, I'm only rolling my mouse one time and it jumps down a whole screen. So I don't think that's of value to us really. I just wanted to show you that that exists. But I am going to change it to multiple lines at a time and then choose how many lines to scroll each time. So I can go up to 100. I think, again, that's going to be way too quickly for most of us in this room. What we want is a lower number, so every time we click that center mouse button, it doesn't go too far. So that makes more sense for me. Now, every time I click, it's going down just a few lines. That's about right for me right there.
What do you
But
have that set on?
I have that set on 8. So maybe even a little slower might be better for me. I change it to 7. All right, everybody still with us there? Okay, and then one last item then. If you'll go down to your taskbar, you should see a little envelope. And we'll click on that envelope. And then go to View. Once we're in View, we want Options. And then Change Folder, and I went a little fast on that, so let me do it again. I'm in View, Options, and then we want this center screen. Actually, I think I have this on the last page, right? Yeah, at the bottom of the last page. And I was mistaken, I had one more page to go, so I'm going to take a little bit more of your time. But at the bottom of the last page, Folder Options, and is everybody there with us on Folder Options that wants to be? Okay. Scott, can you help Joe out getting to Folder Options, please?
What's the tab? Desktop?
Right. In the
Oh, in the view section?
In the View section, right. Options, and then Folder Options. You can single click to open an item, which you see that I have selected, or double click. This, I think, is arguably the most helpful hint that I'll give you this morning, because I don't like to double click every time I want to open a link. I'd rather, not a link because you're all single click there, but every time I'm opening something, say an icon on the desktop, I can set it up to only single click. And of course, click on Apply. I don't need to click on Apply because I didn't make any changes, but if I did, then I click on Apply.
And you can do this at any folder?
Right, it doesn't matter what folder you're in, as long as you're in the Windows File
And it
Explorer.
will be universal?
It'll be universal, right? Yeah. Good question.
Hands are so trained.
Okay. Now you see if I rest my cursor over one of the icons on my desktop, it becomes the hand instead of still being a pointer. The hand with one finger stuck up in the air tells me that it's only one click that I
Depending
need.
on which finger it is.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
Depending on which finger it is.
Right, right. It's the right finger, it's the pointer finger. Okay. Back at the last page again, under More Helpful Hints. Let's click on that search field once more and type in keyboard. Don't go to on-screen keyboard, but just go to keyboard. And again, I'll press enter. And this is another hint that I really like. the repeat rate, what that does, I want to go to slow, and then notice, no, I'm sorry, that's not the one I want, my bad. Down here, the cursor blink rate, I'm going to go to slow, and then it's going to be hard for you to see, unfortunately, because of the limitations of our technology. But actually, this is blinking so slowly that it's not even blinking. So you can see where that would be hard to spot on the screen, because it looks just like the letter I, or the number 1. However, if I go all the way to fast, watch what will happen. Now it's a little I jumping out at me, I, really quickly. So as soon as I look at the screen, I can spot that movement, making it easier to find.
What's it look like in the middle?
What's that, Herb?
What's it look like in the middle setting?
In the middle? Okay, let's try it. That's about in the middle there. That's probably the default, I imagine. Fairly fast, but with my old eyes, I like to set it on fast. And as soon as I go to a screen, I can see that movement and make it easier to spot the cursor. All right, everybody caught up with us there? Good. And then one final item. If you'll click in the search field one final time and type typing. 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 And this one, I don't know. It may be more hassle than it's worth, but I'll show you anyway. And then you'll go to show text suggestions as I type the software keyboard. And turn that on. Now, if that's turned on, I'm going to go to a word processing document. Let me start a new one here. And I'm going to type UNIV, and look what happens. As soon as I type UNIV, it asks me, do you want university, univ, period, or universal?
Just keep typing.
Well, how do you choose it?
Yeah, I can keep typing. Okay, Suzanne's question is a good one. It's my next point. How do I choose that? I have two choices. I can either use the arrow on the keyboard. If I press on the up arrow, that's where I go.
Oh.
And then somebody tell me how do I get to that center option? The right arrow, sure. The right arrow takes me there. And then how would I, once I say, well, it's universal that I want, enter, right. When I press enter, there we go. Now, I wrote on the sheet that if your typing skills aren't the best, and later on after I had already made my copies, I thought, also, if you're like me and you can't spell, then this is a good option for you, because the computer knows how to spell better than I do. So,
This is a really good option when you have a broken arm.
yeah, there we go. Terry had a little accident, had a broken arm, so that's a good option for her, with only being able to use one hand right now, to turn that option on.
I'm learning how to use my phone to record my information and then transfer it over to my computer in an email, and I've got the body of my message.
Cool, very good. All right, anybody have a question then, or comment, anything to add to all this? Herb?
Something that's a little bit removed from this. I remember a very long time ago reading something about repurposing the keys on your keyboard. And last night I Googled it, and there was a directions to how to do that.
Okay, what does that do?
I didn't have to time the fool with it,
Okay.
and I shut it off, but I didn't know if anybody else might know something about it.
No, John, what does that mean?
Yeah, if you want to, let's say you want to get rid of the exclamation point on your keyboard and make it be a euro sign. You could actually pick the euro key and make that the exclamation point, and it's like a sign of a key. It's like a key assignment is what it is.
Okay.
Well, there's a key down there next to the bottom row, to the right of the space bar. And I've never had a good explanation what it is. It looks sort of like a key.
There's 1,000 symbols that you can use.
It looks like a file cabinet or something.
We already found out because.
I've never seen anybody use it.
You could even put like the dots above like the Greek language, the
Yeah.
Russians use and all that. You can take alphabets from their language and put on your
Where do you
regular
find
keyboard.
that? In reposition?
Bottom,
I don't recommend doing it.
okay.
Well,
I have no experience
It's
with
hard to
it.
undo it.
All right, anybody else? Andy, you had your hand up, I think? Or somebody did, oh, it was Paul.
Yeah. Windows logon screen has your ease of access button, but I think it has limited options.
Okay.
If anyone wants to try it, log in off and it's there, see if that brings up your limited options. Usually your scroll bar on the right is hidden until you put your mouse over it, so I really don't, I haven't tried it.
Okay. All right.
It has about 6 or 7 limited options, the narration, your sticky keys, and a couple other ones, but I'm not sure there's a scroll there.
Okay.
If anyone wants to try it, go to your login screen, that should be on your lower right on Windows 7, it's on your lower left. Looks like a clock with arrows pointing down to the right.
All right, very good, thanks for that information.
What are sticky keys? I see that come up if I repeat the letter.
Yeah, sticky keys, I'm thinking, I might have it backwards, I'm thinking that it means, Scott, can you help me out with that one, sticky keys? I haven't used those in many, many years.
I have nothing but problems with the sticky keys, and I had trouble finding it to turn it off, and that creates a lot of issues. If someone really wants to give a little brief on sticky keys, that would be an interesting thing. I really can't intelligently answer that question.
I got a volunteer here.
All right.
Okay, so I typed in sticky keys in that search field and I have the option to turn them on. I just can't remember,
You hit the
What they
shift button
do.
5 times.
well, what do they do? That's what,
When you get sticky keys going, it gives you like a command prompt. So let's say you don't know the password to your computer, and it says, put in your password, and it says wrong password a million times, and you don't have no software, and you want to hack into your own computer, you turn the sticky keys on, you get the command prompt, and you type in some commands, add a couple files, and it gives you a chance to put in a new password right there, and break into anybody's computer you want. That's real hacking.
okay. All right.
Well, that was clear.
Joe,
Yes.
what does sticky key mean? What does that mean?
Well, that's what John was just,
I couldn't
yeah.
hear.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. It gives you access to the command prompt, is an easy way to explain it. When you first turn your computer on, if you tap your shift button 5 times, it says you want to turn sticky keys on, you hit yes, and on the new version of Windows 10, it doesn't automatically go to it no more. On the old 1709 Windows 10, it went straight to a command prompt on your screen. Again, that's more technical junk than most people need to know, but it's.
Oh, so they closed that security loophole.
The new security loophole beat it, just so you know, is real simple. What you do is, you turn your machine off 3 times before it boots up. Then you get into where it diagnoses your computer. Then you go to command prompt, and you got the command prompt. And then after you create these commands, when you go to log in, instead of going to log in, now this is interesting. Instead of going to log in and type in your password, you actually go down to the handicap user accessibility icon and click it, and it gives you a command prompt right in the middle of your screen, and that's where you can type in new passwords and all kinds of stuff. It's pretty cool.
Okay, that does sound like something that we don't necessarily want to mess with in
it
this.
says here,
room.
sticky keys were designed for people who have difficulty holding down 2 or more keys simultaneously.
Oh, okay. So the definition Terry found is sticky keys are designed for people who have difficulty holding down 2 or more keys simultaneously. When a shortcut requires a key combination such as Control plus P, which would print, sticky keys will enable you to press the modifier key Control and have it remain active until another key is pressed. Okay, so that makes sense. And that might be somewhat of useful.
C.
Right. If you can't press Control and C at the same time, you can press Control and then wait a split second and then press C, and then that'll do the same thing as Control plus C would do. Okay, so that makes sense. All right, thank you, Jerry. All right, anybody else have any questions or comments on all this? Scott?
Yeah, just a little comment regarding double clicking and single clicking. If someone likes to use the Control A for all when they want to either highlight something or hold down the shift key while they're picking the ones, the actual folders or files they want to delete. I think it would be easier to leave the double click on and just use the right click. If you're having trouble opening a folder or file, right click on it. When you can practice now, just right click on it in a folder, and it will, at the very top, it will say open, then you can left click on open. And that works for me a lot of times. It kind of scares me to use a single click. I have a couple customers that have that. Makes it difficult for me to get around to do the work I need to fix their computer. So you can see what's best for you. And that's why they actually have that option. It's a single click because most people don't use the function that I do.
Okay, very good. All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, John.
That's the idea.
Thank you, Scott. So you're going to be putting this up into the cloud, I mean, into the website?
Yeah, I can upload that as well as the video.
And the problem I noticed has been that people have the shell on the computers gets different windows.